should be prepared to wait longer for your NHS operation. Patients in England will face longer waiting times for routine operations like hip and knee replacements, cataract removals and hernia repairs under the latest NHS plans. The head of NHS England, Simon Stevens, is setting out his priorities for the health service for the next 2 years. He says he can no longer guarantee treatment within 18 weeks for non-urgent surgery. But in return, he claims there'll be quicker cancer diagnosis and improvements to accident and emergency care. NHS England's medical director is Bruce Keogh. He says the health service is under increased pressure and needs to make the most of limited resources.
As a surgeon, I have deep sympathy for people that have to wait for surgery, but Simon Stevens is right to draw that to people's attention. But there is a solution, and that lies in encouraging the different component parts of the NHS to work much more closely together, along with local authorities and social services, to help us get people out of hospital. That would free up something like 2,000 to 3,000 beds in the NHS, which could be used more effectively for providing quicker elective surgery.
Now, aims set out in the new strategy include improving cancer survival rates, increased access to mental health therapies, and the recruitment of more GPs. Family doctors will also be asked to cut back on the numbers of patients they send to hospital, with other options such as physiotherapy encouraged instead. But some patients groups have expressed concern, saying more patients will be left in agony as they wait for vital operations. Noel Dixon is the chief executive of the NHS Confederation, which represents the majority of NHS providers and commissioners. He says tough choices are inevitable.
I think this was inevitable that they were going to have to relax some performance measures in the health service. The level of pressure, which almost every bit of the NHS, not just accident and emergency that we hear quite a lot about, they're all under enormous pressure. And if the government and NHS England are wanting more and better things from some areas, they're obviously going to have to trade, as it were, some of the other things.
What's not addressed in the new blueprint is whether more money is needed. Simon Stevens says this report is about what the NHS can deliver within the current level of funding, not about whether the budget is enough. Chris Ham is the chief executive of the King's Trust, a think tank specialising in healthcare policy. He says the NHS is seriously underfunded and more money is needed to care for our ageing population.
The government ought to find extra money. We've been arguing that for some time, and recently they did for social care, because the social care pressures mean that beds are fully occupied and we can't admit at the front door, and therefore people are having to wait longer. So money can be found if the government decides that the NHS should be a priority in future, and that would make a big difference if the government finds sufficient funds.
Now, in a statement, the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, says the government has invested £10 billion in the NHS, and ministers have recently announced extra money for social care. He says the new plan will mean better cancer treatment, expanding GP access and transforming mental health care. Sounds quite good, doesn't it? Roseanne Edwards is a journalist and health campaigner. Roseanne, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too.
This all sounds quite scary, but should we just have to wait until this £350 million a week starts coming our way?
Well, you know as well as I do there's no hope of that.
Really?
The things I've been hearing are absolutely outrageous because they've been trotted out for so long and they're completely untrue. I mean, if anybody actually really wants to know what Simon Stevens is saying in this report today, the next steps for the NHS 5-year forward view, is he says that the NHS in Britain is one of the leanest publicly funded health systems in the world, and it's still trying to do even better, i.e. even less for that money. And he also says there are considerable risks to this stretching of finance. I mean, he knows as well as everybody else does that he's been brought in from America, having been vice president of America's biggest insurance system, medical insurance system, to come in at the request of David Cameron to completely change the way the NHS works in this country. And the 5-year forward view is designed to do exactly that. All this business about saying that, that the NHS doesn't have the money, that's a choice by this government. It doesn't have the money. We are the 6th wealthiest country in the world, and we give comparatively the least amount, or one of the very, very, right down at the bottom of the scale of amounts per head of population into our NHS.
Hang on, Roseanne. Why do you think this? Because you mentioned that some of them did come from the States, so you ran a big insurance company there. Why do you think? Because the statement from the Health Secretary is that the government has invested £10 billion. That makes it sound like the money is there.
Well, Are we talking about the £10 billion that they're supposedly putting in? They're taking half of that from another part of the NHS for a start, so it isn't £10 billion. The other thing is that the internal market, that is the part of the NHS that is devoted to outsourcing services, is costing the NHS between £4.5 billion and £10 billion per year. If they took away the internal market and stopped trying to outsource services to companies who are using NHS-trained staff and who are using the NHS blue and white logo, so nobody knows whether they're getting their knee replacement by an NHS doctor or by a private doctor. You know, what's happening with the NHS is that it is being groomed, it's being downgraded, and the whole part about axing the 18-week waits for operations is that they know very well that what will happen is that those who can afford it will not wait 18 weeks. They will go private. I mean, my chimney sweep was here yesterday telling me about an ear operation he'd had that's been miraculous and has given him hearing back again. And, you know, the doctors were trying to push him to get this done privately until his GP said, absolutely no, this is an NHS operation. So what's been going on is that there's been a steady, slow, surreptitious destruction of the reputation of the NHS.
The government would, Roseanne, I have to point out, the government would deny that that's the case.
Well, let them deny it, but the proof is all there. You know, go and ask any GPs. I've got a GP who's been coming around doing public meetings with the campaign group in our area, who has been explaining to people he is a GP. He's not, you know, he's not a politician with an axe to grind, saying that the number of GPs who are actually leaving who plan to leave the service in the next 5 years is absolutely frightening, and that a fifth of all GPs have actual clinical depression because of the pressures that they're under. But they are being given responsibility for changing the NHS and for the downgrading of hospitals. It's a plan that's going to end in disaster for everybody who doesn't take out medical insurance.
Roseanne, thank you for joining us. Roseanne Edwards is a journalist and health campaigner. If you disagree with her or agree with her, pick up the phone. Have you say, look, I spend a lot of time talking about the NHS. Today's story is about longer waits for your routine NHS operation. What do you think that really means?